LTA End of Semester Summary Assignment question number 36. Solve the following independent system of equations. 3x minus 5y equals negative 34, and 7x minus 3y equals negative 10. Since the textbook went through solving these by substitution, I will go ahead and do that because I think the majority of you will be doing substitution. But if I have time, I will go ahead and do the elimination method, which I think many of you are finding to be faster than doing the substitution method. So substitution, we're just going to pick one of these equations. It doesn't matter, any of them, and pick a variable to solve for. So let's go ahead and solve for x because it's right here and we can do that. So let's add 5y to both sides, keeping the equal sign balanced, and it'll cancel out here, so I'm left with 3x. And on the right side, I'll put the 5y first, just out of habit, like the slope-intercept form, although this isn't, just because. And then I need to continue solving for x by, so I'm going to do the opposite of the operation here to get rid of the 3, which is divide. So I'm going to divide every single term by 3. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. On the left-hand side, 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times x is x. And then I have 5/3 y minus, and I'm going to keep this in improper fraction form. I'm going to leave it as 34/3. Now I need to substitute that into the other equation. Do not use the same equation because then you'll end up with a dependent system because you'll end up with the same equation, right? So we're going to substitute all of this in for x. So I'm going to replace x with parentheses, and then all of this goes in, copy and paste, Control V, all of that goes in for x in the other equation. And now I'm going to multiply the 7 in using the distributive property. And this is where we usually end up with fractions. So those of you who don't like fractions, the elimination method might be a good option for you. 7 times 5 is 35. And we keep the 3 on the bottom. Nothing cancels out yet. And then 7 times 34, I don't have that one memorized, so I'm just going to use my calculator here. And we get 7 times 34 is 238 thirds. Oh, I forgot my minus sign here. And then the 3 right here, this minus 3y, I don't need to multiply by the 7. It's not inside the parentheses, so we'll do that. Equals negative 10. Okay, you know what? Instead of continuing to work with these fractions, let's take everything and multiply it by the 3 so that I'm not working with fractions anymore. So let's do 3 times this entire thing and do the distributive. And that way I don't have any denominators anymore. 3 divided by 3 is 1 times 35 is 35. So I have 35y. And then it'll be easier to combine it with this like term over here. 3 divided by 3 is 1, which gives me minus 238. And it doesn't have any variable on there, so we're done. Then 3 times 3 is 9y, and then 3 times negative 10 gives me negative 30. And the reason I can do that is I'm doing it to every term, so it keeps this equal sign balanced. Now I just need to, that makes it so much nicer than working with those fractions. 35 minus 9 gives me 26y minus 238 equals negative 30. To continue solving for y, we need to add 238 to both sides. Add 238. Keeping that equal sign balanced, 238. And so on the left-hand side, I'm only left with 26y. And on the right-hand side, 238 minus 30 gives me 208. Yeah, that looks good. And then to continue solving for y, we need to divide both sides by 26. So divide by 26 on the left, divide by 26 on the right, and then I'm left with y equals 8. And then I'm going to take this and substitute that 8 into our x equals here. And, you know, let's just go ahead and use Excel for that because I think it'll go really fast. So let me move this over. There we go. We're just gonna do this, copy and paste, and then we'll have to take out some of these extra spaces. And oh, Excel thinks that's a dash and not a subtraction, so we'll replace that with a subtract, and then replace our x with 8, or y with 8, and make sure I tell Excel to multiply here. And there's another space there. I think everything else looks good, so we can enter, and that makes x equal 2. All right, so we have our answer of 2 and 8, and we can put that in here, 2 and 8. And then I said we would go ahead and do the elimination method just because. So I'm going to, we'll just copy this and come down here. All right, so the elimination method, we need to multiply the top and the bottom by something to get rid of everything. So this top one, if I multiply this by 7, oops, on the outside, 7 to everything, and then on the bottom, if I multiply this by 3, then the x's are both 21. I could also multiply the top by 3 and the bottom by 5, and you'll see that that then makes these the same number in front of the y, the same coefficient, and same here. But that's up to you if you wanted to do that. Oh, and one of these needs to be negative so that when I add them together, it'll cancel it out. Okay, so if however, when you're working on these, if you can just multiply one of them by something that would eliminate everything, then that's even better. So if this were like 2 and 8, then I would just need to multiply this entire equation by 4. Okay, so 7 times 3 gives me 21x minus 7 times 5 is 35y equals 7 times 34. Going to use my calculator. 7 times 34 gives me 238, and that's negative. And then the next equation, 3 times 7, or negative 3 times 7, is negative 21x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9y equals negative 3 times negative 10 is positive 30. In adding these together, the 21s cancel, and I get negative 35 plus 9, which is negative 26y. That number sounds familiar. And then negative 238, add 30 makes negative 208. To continue solving, we just divide both sides by 26 to solve for y. Divide by negative 26. Divide by negative 26. And then on the left-hand side, we're left with y equals, and 208 divided by 26, or negative divided by negative, is positive, and that gives us positive 8. Now the disadvantage here is that you have to go back and solve one of these again for x so that you can find y, and that we can do that really quickly here. So we're going to substitute in the 8, making sure I put parentheses so that I know I multiply. That makes 3x. Get rid of this. we just want to get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so then we get 3x minus 40 equals negative 34. Then we need to add 40 to both sides to cancel it out. Add 40. On the left-hand side, the 40s cancel, so I'm left with 3x. On the right-hand side, negative 34 plus 40 gives me positive 6. And then to keep solving, we need to divide both sides by 3 to cancel out that 3. And 6 divided by 3 is 2, so I get x equals 2. And again, we could plug that into an 8. Whichever method you prefer, but that's our answer.